Good night, everybody. John Prusak here from Snow Goer Magazine, your host for another episode of Snow Goer Live, where we talk about all things snowmobile related. It's frankly a balmy day here in Minneapolis, but we've got snow in the forecast for next week, so that's a good sign. We'll take that. So again, this is a weekly show scheduled to be Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, where we talk about snowmobile racing, snowmobile trail riding, industry shop talk, whatever it is, the sleds we're riding, where we're going, and just having fun with it. The format is also intended to let you be a part of the show. So we have a little we can read the statements that you put on either Facebook Live or on YouTube while we're shooting this. So you can ask questions of our guests. You can ask questions of me. Just have fun with it. We're here to celebrate the great sport of snowmobiling. So first, though, I want to thank our sponsors. We have three now, and we'd like to thank them all. First of all, we're sponsored by Arctiva, maker of a complete line of snowmobile gear from jackets, bibs, boots, gloves, you name it. They can be found at arctiva.com. We're also brought to you by Gates G-Force Power Sports Belts. They make belts for snowmobiles, of course, which is our number one love, but they also make belts for ATVs, side-by-sides, all sorts of power sports equipment. You can learn more at gates.com. And finally, we're sponsored by Z1R. Z1R makes a complete line of snowmobile helmets, but they also make helmets and other gear for all of you motorcyclists out there. So check it out at z1r.com. Before we get to our two guests, and we have two good ones tonight, I think you're going to like both these guys. Let's cover a little news from the snowmobile industry. So first, let's talk racing. So the snowcross circuit was out in Deadwood, South Dakota last weekend, where Emil Haar and Elias Ischel split the two nights of pro class racing. It was kind of an interesting night there, interesting weekend, because Haar had a weird thing with tech. He missed going to tech after the races on Friday, so he lost all his points from one of the three finals that they do there, but came back and finished really well and finished, I think, fourth overall on Friday night when Ischel won. And then on Saturday, Ischel got into a first corner tangle in the second of the three motos and got kind of shuffled towards the back and had some mechanical problems. And that night, Haar absolutely cleaned up. So, all of those of you who harken back to the Tucker Hibbert, Blair Morgan kind of rivalry when you had two really good guys in the track, or, if you want to go back further to Kirk Hibbert and Jack Struthers cross-country racing back in the day, we have two really good guys at the top of the field in snowcross right now. And if you pay attention, that budding rivalry is going to be a lot of fun because they are pretty evenly matched now. Haar's really come on in the last couple of years. Looking elsewhere, the Oval Sprint USSA Pro Star Cup Tour was in Wausau for the Wausau Sprint World Cup. And Mr. Blaine Stevenson absolutely mopped up on everybody. He won Pro Champ 440 both days. He won Formula 3 both days. So other than the Eagle River World Championship race, Blaine has been pretty spotless in January, but he missed the big one. But still, he's starting to take kind of a commanding lead in that Pro Star Cup Tour points race right now. There was also oval racing out east at Boonville, New York, a really cool little town that I was very happy to get to go visit this last June. Boonville has a deep history in this sport. And out there, Lucas Nast and Jamie Burgess won the two big races. So congratulations to them. Cross country racing, which one of our guests today played a big part in his life earlier on. They were in Park Rapids, Wisconsin, or Park Rapids, Minnesota this weekend. And Dan Revering was your big winner there. It was a 100-mile race, the final was, and he won it by 1.9 seconds. So just, being slightly off entering or exiting a turn can cost you a race. That's how tight that is, even though it's a 100-mile race. Speaking of long races, the Enduro boys were in Kinross, Michigan this weekend, and the Tommy Bauer Racing number 19 took the title there. Enduro's big race is this coming weekend, the Soo I-500, and we're going to talk about that a lot here in a little bit in the program. As far as industry stuff, there was the Midwest Ride-In at ERX that we took in last Friday before riding on Saturday. Everyone still wants to repeat every Arctic Cat rumor they hear. I don't have an answer for you at this point. We've got a guy coming on a little bit later who is a former Arctic Cat rep, so we might, kind of put the screws to him about it. But yeah, so a lot going on. Hope you're enjoying winter. Hope you're getting out riding. It may not be right outside your door, but hopefully it's within a easy trailer for you. I'm planning on either going tomorrow or Saturday up to northern Minnesota, and I'm really looking forward to it. So now let's jump in with our guests. The very first one we have is a gentleman with a deep history in the snowmobile industry, but I'm not calling him old, by the way. Dave Sarna of the Manawa Snodeo is sitting backstage. Let's call him up here. Here he comes, Dave Manawa. Do you like your new name, Dave?
Yeah, I guess I've been called worse, but good evening, John, and good evening, all you viewers out there.
Well, we're glad to have you join us. The main reason we're having Dave on is we're going to talk about the Manawa Snodeo, which is one of the really cool events in all of snowmobiling right now, as far as just being all encompassing. We're also going to talk about the Decker Triple Crown series that's been put together that's hoping to breathe some new life there, some added life into oval racing. But first, let's get to know Dave a little bit. So, Dave, you and I have talked before, but you've got a long history in this sport dating back to a hometown brand. Why don't you share some stories with us?
Yeah, I sure did. I mean, quite a few of your viewers and the fans, spectators, racers have raced in Manawa, and they love our little town, and it's kind of in the center of Wapaka County. But our claim to fame here is the Tradewinds snowmobile brand, which was one of the 300 or 400 plus from years back. But in 1968, it was documented as the first ever snowmobile to exceed 100 miles an hour. And so that was always contested. And, there's a lot of other authorities out there that said that would have been impossible. And so the owner's sons, the owner has passed away now, but his sons got a hold of me a few years back and said, what about if we recreated that machine, that engine, that power plant? And we had some very good people that got involved with this project. Mike Wienert did the engine work for us, and Olav Ain did a bunch of work for us as well. And so we went out there and we ran in 1,000 feet, 104 miles an hour. And so everybody kind of quieted down after that. And then we took that machine and it went to the museum in Eagle River, the world headquarters. And now the machine sits up in the top of the Lakes Museum. Okay. So it's kind of was a small adventure here in town, but we made campers in the wintertime and snowmobiles in the summertime. And there's quite a few people that still have a history with Tradewinds and remember those days in that era.
Absolutely. So how about your history in snowmobiling? Give us the nickel tour.
Yeah, our family was very much involved with car racing for years, and I'm a Chicago boy, but I loved Manawa. I loved the outdoors, and instantly fell in love with, getting on a machine that you could, drive across the snow. And I still I'm fascinated to it by this very day, and I just think there's no better experience than being out there on a freshly groomed trail. And so naturally, with my racing background, I got into a lot of racing buddies that got me involved into that. And my career just kind of kept on blossoming from there. And then eventually my son, actually Darcy Ewing and his son, got my boy involved with racing on kitty cats when he was 5 or 6 years old. And then he went through a series of all the juniors and amateur ranks. And luckily, the Moyle family picked Mike up and saw some potential in him. And so my son ended up racing Pro Champ sleds, and he loved the speed, but he wanted more time on the seat. So he went to USCC and did a bunch of cross country racing. And then that's kind of where the Snodeo concept came along from, is a cross country race. And then it's evolved into now 2 full days. We've raced nights for years. We have 4 racetracks that run for 2 days, and always the third weekend in February.
Let's get into the Snodeo a little bit, because I mean, frankly, when I started with Snow Goer back in '93, my very first year, I got to cover, write stories about some cool festivals. It was the Mardi Gras de Snow in Paradise, Michigan. There was the Red Light Rally in Hurley. I went out to the Grand Prix de Valcourt, which was a festival, not just a race, but it was the entire town, and even the West Yellowstone Expo. some of those have disappeared or fallen on hard times. But to me, the events like what you guys do really breathe life and energy into the sport, which is why I wanted to have you on. So talk about kind of all the different things you have going on there and kind of your mentality on that.
You know, John, we have a lot, and our little snowmobile derby is an offshoot from back between about the years of 68 to 71. There was similarly an event in our town, and it was mainly a cross-country race on either the pond or the river. But I can still remember being a boy, and they had a torchlight parade where they literally there were 2 up sleds, and the passenger would carry a torch and ride right down the highway on the shoulder. And there'd be 50 or 60 snowmobiles in that. And so that was a lot of just the average riders, the average snowmobilers. But, you know, at that time, I already saw that connection between families, getting the wives involved. And so we've really kind of plussed that up. So, yeah, I mean, besides 4 racetracks running and USSA being here and PVR and a lot of high-speed oval racing, we do a noon parade, and everything comes to a halt exactly at noon on both days. And we have a parade of a lot of the unique machines that we have. We invite the kitty cat racers to come out and they do their thing. And I mean, this year I have the high school band coming out, and they're going to do the musical portion of that. But there's a vintage show that we do. We do a flyover with some of my local pilot friends that run their private planes over the top of the lake. We have skydivers that come in, and they drop in with the American flag, Canadian flag. This year, we finally look like we're going to have good weather to have hot air balloons there. Mark Hiller passed away up at St. Germain. So this year, we're going to have radar runs along with bikini radar runs. And that monies goes to the Pink Ribbon Riders for cancer patient support group. So that's something neat. We host the state kitty cat champions. The Merrill Ice Drag Racers come in with their cars and trucks, and they race on our radar run and a drag race track on Sunday. We have a quartet group that sang at the Brewer games. They sing at the Bucks games. They're coming in and do the musical portion on Sunday. And we're having kids games, face painting, scavenger hunts, kids coloring contests. I have a magician coming in to do an act for these kids at the end of the day, you know, just keeping that family thing going. There's fireworks. We have lumberjack racing on Sunday afternoon. And I have a Hollywood stuntman that you don't want to miss. And this idea came from Ted Otto and the Polaris Thrill Team. And anybody that doesn't know what the Polaris Thrill Team is, do yourself a favor, go to YouTube and do a search for that. And these guys, Dick Decker even told me, you know, years back, they were trying to get more crowds at snowmobile races. So what did they do? They did all these stunts, and Larry the Looper did a big loop that Polaris recreated at their 50th anniversary. So there's a variety of things besides the racing portion.
Yeah, it's what I'm wondering is, where's the juggler, where's the mime, and where's the dog and pony show? Because I think those are the only 3 things you're missing out of this whole deal.
John, could you say that one more time so I can write them down so I don't forget it for next year?
The dog and mime show and the pony and juggler. No,
you never know. You never know. People have said to me, you would race anything, Darren. I said, I would entertain vacuum cleaner racing. If you give me 20 guys, 10 Hoovers and 10 Kirbys, we're going to line them up and we're going to race them.
Yep. And I guarantee you, if they had a little bit of power behind them, there's plenty of people that would line up to ride those things.
If they make noise and they put on a show, they're invited.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I know you have a team behind you. You're not a one-man show, but does your team kind of have a anything goes type mentality? I mean, when you keep adding things like this,
this didn't happen overnight. So, like I said, we've added these events slowly but surely. But I think the proof is in the pudding. And so I'm very, very blessed because we have a wonderful staff. We have a lot of volunteers that get on board on this. And it really gives our entire county a huge shot in the arm. And we attract people from, you know, the entire Midwest that come to Manawa. And so I think everybody locally sees that influx. I mean, Eagle River really set the bar with that years back. But there's a lot of influx of people that come by. And they see what we do and they love it and they want to do it again next year.
I'm putting up on the screen right now a copy of the poster. You can go to snowgoer.com and see this in the story. It's more legible than I realize it will be on your screen just because of the orientation of the show here. But and again, this is just some of the things they have going on in Manawa this weekend. It's it's as Dave described, it's a complete dog and pony show. It's a circus. So yeah, a lot of visual fun stuff going on there. The what I like about it is just the fact that yes, it's definitely snowmobile centric, but it's also family oriented. You were telling me earlier about, things related to ice fishing or whatever it is, anything that can get people there and let them have fun and enjoy a beautiful winter day out.
I mean, I think guys are going to stay longer if their wives are there, if their kids are there. Their kids are into face painting. They're getting their picture taken with Stanley, our mascot, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we really try to emphasize that family atmosphere. And what I do is I kind of float around, and some of these ideas, I'll just jump in one of our golf carts that shuttle people from the parking lot to the racetrack. And a lot of people don't even know who I am. So I'm driving them back to the parking lot and I say, how did you enjoy the show? What did you like? What didn't you like? And I really take that to the bank. So I always say I have broad shoulders. And so whatever critiques, criticisms, improvements that we can benefit from, I'm glad to hear them.
So again, our guest here on Snow Goer Live is Dave Sarna of the Manawa Snodeo. We have Chad Colby sitting backstage, who we'll talk to in just a little bit here. Dave, another interesting thing that you have going on, although it extends beyond Manawa, is the Decker Triple Crown, a kind of a neat series that you worked with the Decker family on. Kind of briefly describe what that is and kind of what its goals are.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I've really had the best time. I mean, I just love Dick Decker to death. He was just greatest man in the world and a really good guy to run things past and ideas. And he always sort of had this vision for a series. And, we talked about it different times and we weren't sure how it was all going to come down. And unfortunately, we lost Dick this last late spring, early summer. And really, I mean, the boys were all there and I grabbed Alan off to the side and I said, Alan, I know this isn't the best time in the world to introduce this idea, but I just know, especially now, we got to do something in tribute to your dad and your family. And Bob Richardson called me from USSA the day that Dick passed away. And I said, Bob, and he was fully on board with this as well. Sure. I said, let's do something neat for Dick and Audrey this coming year. And so the boys helped mold this thing, and they've been hugely involved. We raised a lot of prize money, and we chipped away on a lot of sponsors out there. But I promise all of that monies will indeed be going to the drivers at Manawa. And so it's it's a Triple Crown. It's a 3-race series. So the last qualifying race will be this weekend at Wausau at the 525. So that's the PVR vintage race. And it is only on Saturday. So a lot of people think, well, hey, I'll come on Sunday. Don't do that. I think you're going to see nothing but an empty parking lot. But this is the last qualifying race. And we have 24 entries. And so the top 10 points standing drivers, they will get an invite for a front row start at Manawa. And that'll be on February 16th at 3 o'clock for the feature race. The 11th through 20th, we'll get a chance at the LCQ, which is going to be on Saturday, February 15th at Manawa at 1 o'clock. We'll pull 2 from that. They'll go to the back row, and the top 10 will be in the front row, and we're going to race it off. We're paying back 1st through 10th, but the first prize, and we have a little fun with this, I'm actually, this is true, John, I'm going to give our winner 10,000 $1 bills in a briefcase handcuffed to my wrist, and our county sheriff is going to walk me in, and I'm going to hand this over to the winner. So everybody out there in the racing world has had a lot of fun with this, and I've had a few people say, well, who would want that? And I said, you know what? Somebody gave me 10,000 $1 bills. I'd take it in a heartbeat. So we're adding a little drama to that as well, but it's all in good sport, and we're really looking forward to it. It's been a fun series. These guys are really into this thing, and there's been some excellent races we've had so far. Looking for another good one this coming Saturday.
I know, not everybody who watches our show is into oval racing as you and I are. So a little bit of background for those of you who maybe don't know a lot about this. So it's run in the Formula or the F500 class. And so that's where a lot of entry level people are. And it's also a class that keeps a lot of people in the sport who maybe aren't, don't want to race the really fast pro champ class. And so it's aimed at a segment of the market that's really important to growing the sport. And that's one of the many things that I really liked about it when you guys first announced this.
Very well said, John. And really, this was something that Dick kind of shared with me. He said, we need to invest basically in our future. And that F500 is a class where, either we're going to make it or break it. We're going to stay with racing. We're going to move up. We're going to maybe go into F3 or champ sled. But like you said, it's really a stepping stone class. And part of it's a class that will help keep oval racing alive and well. And that was as well. The boys all embraced it, and they're totally on board with this. And like I said, they're constantly supporting this thing and reaching out to people. So we're expecting a huge show at Manawa. You're going to see a lot of former racers out there, a lot of affiliates of the Eagle River Derby track, and a lot of affiliates and friends of the Decker family.
It's sounds like great fun to me. So let's give it a plug to the dates this year, and then just for those of you who maybe listen to this podcast afterwards, this is an annual event, and Dave just keeps hyping it up more every year. But this year's dates are
February 15th and 16th. It's in Manawa, Wisconsin. The event itself is at Bear Lake, which is just south of the city of Manawa. All of the surrounding towns, we do motels with all of them. So Wapaka, New London, Marion, Clintonville, you name it, they're all on board with lodging. So whoever wants to come here, we definitely will be able to help you out with lodging. And this Triple Crown as well is something that the Deckers said, we're not in this for 1 year and done. We're in this for a minimum of 10 years. So you guys, if you don't win it this year, don't worry, because the F500 class is going to be our choice class for at least 3 years. And our locations may change from year to year. But we're not going to just do this 1 year. It's going to be many years that we're planning on doing it.
So it's on a lake just south of Manawa. So it'd be suburban Manawa for those of you.
There you go. That way.
Manawa is a gorgeous little town of 1,400 people, roughly, right, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, any sign-off words? I don't want to let Mr. Colby rot in the background. We really appreciate you joining us.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, John. And I want to thank you for all the hard work you do on this. And you're always positive and you're upbeat. And that's we all need to stay. And, we were talking with various state representatives from the AWSC. And it's like, you know what, Dave? We could have the biggest snow year in February we've ever had. So you guys are thinking, I'm going to park my sled. Don't do that. This is still Wisconsin. And we could have a blizzard next week and riding trails. Everything is froze. You're going to be riding trails within 5 days if it all comes together.
Yep. Everybody, we have a January thaw every year, it seems. And this one was a little bit warmer than some. But yeah, there's no saying that February and March can't be spectacular. So don't give up on our great sport. Thank you, Dave. I'm hoping to see you there Sunday. That's also Hall of Fame weekend. So I'm going to be up at the Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame banquet on Friday, Saturday. But I think I might, after talking to you now, have to make kind of an extended way home as I work my way back to Minneapolis and get down there to your great event.
2 hours away, John. Yep. But again, thanks to you, thanks to Snow Goer. Your company and your publication has been the standard of the snowmobile industry as far back as I am. So keep up that good work. Keep that thing afloat. And we love what you do. And just, like I said, God bless you.
Well, I appreciate the plugs. Checks in the mail. Check you later, Dave.
All right. See you, John. Thanks again.
Bye. Great, guys. So again, you're watching Snow Goer Live. We're a weekly show Thursday nights at 7:30 Central Time here on both Facebook and YouTube. And then you can also check it later. Listen to the recording, and we also make a podcast version of it. The whole kit and caboodle is sponsored by Arctiva, maker of a complete line of snowmobile gear, Z1R, which makes a bunch of snowmobile helmets plus a bunch of motorcycle gear, and Gates G-Force Power Sports belts, which makes belts for all sorts of motorized toys. So you can check them out at arctiva.com, z1r.com, and gates.com. So let's jump into our next guest before we put him to sleep in the background, although my guess is he's been watching a second screen the entire time. You haven't even been watching us, have you, Chad?
I'm listening to you. I got my phone on. I've got the live feed from everyone at Flow Racing at the track at the Soo. Yeah, I'm just sitting here. I think my wife's probably wondering what's wrong with me right now, but
Well,
you
she's
know,
probably been wondering that for a while.
it's just a lot of fun this time of year. There's so many great events, and
Yeah.
all of us keep holding our breath for more snow and better riding conditions. But you know what? You and I talked about it this week. There's great places to go ride sleds right now,
Yeah.
and we're so blessed this year to have places to go. Last year we didn't have a lot of riding, as we all know. We did manage to ride a little bit here in Central Illinois, believe it or not. Last year the trails opened up, but this
Yeah.
year that's not the case. There's great riding in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's definitely much more trailerable this year. And yeah, I've been chasing to the UP in northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota, and that's where you'll catch me again this weekend. Although, it's that also takes me away from maybe watching the complete Soo, which I also like to do. We'll get to the Soo here in a little bit, and that's what I was joking about with Chad as far as watching a second screen, because I know he's keeping an eye on some of the special events going there tonight. But let's first tell the story about Chad Colby. Give us the nickel tour of your snowmobiling background.
Oh my gosh, my snowmobiling history was, born and raised on a Central Illinois farm, and we had snowmobiles in the 70s for the obvious reasons, because we couldn't get anywhere. And the rest of it, I blame it on my father. He's passed on now, but really, once I'm in my mid 50s, but once I got out of high school, got modern snowmobiles, and John got the bug like all of us, lived for the next issue of Snow Goer and Snow Week. And, once in the late 90s, started, really wanting to do more and drag racing and goofing off there. But my eyes were always on cross country. That was my dream, was to go run with Jack and the boys and have some really close friends that have been in the power sports industry forever. And, they did their best to talk me out of it when I had when I bought my 92 XCR and everybody else was buying 650s, John, and I was spending more money to have a 440 and just loved it. And, in the 90s, it all started, kind of went to snowcross, and I enjoyed that. Did a bunch of snowcross. And then when Pat Mock lit up cross country again, and Pat and I became good friends, and then it was on, and then it was let's go, and I could afford it, and it was so much fun racing cross country. Met so many amazing people, got involved with Pat and his business at the USCC, and then got to go race the Soo and did all kinds of fun stuff. And of course, in that period as well, took a job with an OEM and worked for Arctic Cat. Took the dream job ever of if you're a snowmobiler, that's the Taj Mahal, right? Working for an OEM, and had some great times. And I think, as you heard even from Dave, I think the industry is all about meeting great people. John, you and I go back so far, I don't even know. And there's lots of people that way. And I think that's the fun part. And now those people have kids, and their kids are racing, and it's just fun. Yeah. It's just fun. Snowmobile is such a unique industry as a whole, and especially as it's having its challenges right now. It doesn't take away from the uniqueness of snowmobiling. I took my wife snowmobiling last winter. We had an absolute blast on a 4-stroke snowmobile, yes, with a heated seat, and it was awesome. Okay. And you couldn't do that. And now you got electronic suspensions and GPSs and all the fun stuff we have. And it's not without challenges. I get that, because we need to be blessed by the Lord with some snow, but that's the long and short of it. As far as it goes for me, was an announcer, announced at USCC, and was the first one to put you were probably in on it, John. We were, broadcasting live from the Soo back when you couldn't do things like that. And it was so much fun. And, now that you can sit, and I'm looking at it on Flow Racing right here and can't stop grinning. It's so awesome. I don't have to be there tonight. I'm good. I can watch it right here. But snowmobile racing is great now that we can share it with more people. And I think that's the key, so anyway, I'll be quiet. John, ask away. Wait, John, are we holding the Arctic Cat questions until later? Are we going to build for that?
We'll do. I don't want to piss you off yet. I want to get through the fun stuff, and then you can proverbially hang up on me. So got to get the business done first.
There you go.
So you talked about first of all, just a personal story. The reason my hair is kind of matted down here is because I was wearing my USCC cap just earlier tonight when I was in the backyard.
Wait a minute. Hey, John, to make you proud, I always have one nearby, and it's sitting right above my desk right here from my buddy Pat. And I think in honor of that, we'll just put that puppy right on. Mine
is kind of more of a gray.
Yes, I have one of those too. Yes, I have basically a tote that has the untouchable USCC stuff stays right there.
He was for those of you who weren't able to meet Pat Mock, he was a great guy and really a one-man wrecking crew when it came to bringing back cross-country racing. And so may he rest in peace. We lost him in a snowmobile accident many years ago. So you've kind of covered some of the ground I was going to cover with questions. So I'll just jump right into the Soo stuff. You're doing all of these other things, the cross-country racing, the snow cross, all this other stuff. How do you get so enamored by the Soo? Because you've kind of become the Rain Man of that race.
You know what's funny, John, is so many of us, okay, if you liked enduro and cross country racing, a lot of those guys made the trek from Minnesota and went out there. And certainly I'm close friends with a lot of those guys. Gabe Bunky is certainly good friends of mine. And man, you ended up watching it, following it, because there's nothing like that track in snowmobiling in the world. I mean, seriously. And there's so much of a factor into the weather. What's the weather going to be like? What's the weather going to be like a month before? Because they got to put 2 or 3 million gallons of water on the track, right? Are we going to have a thick track? Is it 14 inches of ice? Is there 8? Like all of this stuff. And when all this was happening for me, this is when social media was taking off. So I built a fan page for the Soo, and that grew to craziness. And we just have fun talking about the industry and supporting that race just in any way I can. I haven't been up there for a few years, but I'm kind of itching to kind of get back up there. But to be honest with you, it's almost more fun sitting at a computer, getting all the information out there and sharing it with everybody, because a lot of people can't be there. It's not convenient to be there. You know, John, have you been up there, John, yourself?
You know, I have not been to the Soo I-500. I've been to the track. I've driven around the track on a snowmobile. I've watched it online. I've been to other enduro races, but frankly, back in the day, I had 2 different people who worked for me who were from Michigan. So for them, it was going home. So they would always, when we were divvying up the race at the beginning of the season, I would immediately claim Eagle River. They would immediately claim the Soo, and then the one guy in particular would always claim Jackson, although I did get out there a few times. And so it was always this kind of bidding war where we would go for different things. But that's the only reason I haven't been to the Soo, and I am just dying to get there one of these years. It seems
there's just nothing like it. I would encourage all your viewers, if you get a chance on Saturday, or go to YouTube, thank God we got YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And go look at those first 10, 15 laps when that race starts. The Myers shootout's about to light up here. And I'm telling you, there's nothing like, I mean, I get chills in my arms because I've done it. There's 38 sleds come down the front stretch, and you got to remember, they don't give them the green till they get to the bridge that goes across. So they come through the first turn, they're full song going down the back stretch. But when they turn on the front stretch the first time, whew, I mean, they're running. I saw times yesterday of 115, 116. Now that's in qualifying trim, so they'll peel those back, but they're still going to be running north of 110. And I'm telling you, depending on what the snow's doing, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked because they just got through safe. Everybody's doing good here. But, you know, it was just fun for me to get involved and realize the need of sharing the race and talking about snowmobiling, John, like you've done so well in your career. And you know what? It's just a lot of fun. I mean, you just knock on wood and hold your breath. Everybody gets through it safe, right?
Let's back up before we go forward. So for those of you who aren't aren't real familiar with the Soo I-500, it's a 1 mile oval track that they run 500 laps around. It takes about 8 hours, sometimes 9 hours, sometimes more. But there's pit stops, there's strategy. Things are going to wear out. Things are going to break. I mean, last year's winner, he was like 3 laps down at one point after a crash. There's driver changes. I mean, the intrigue, if you pay attention to it, is just interesting on its face. But then when you start to get to know some of the racers or race teams, or get familiar with, or have somebody to pull for, it gets even more intriguing. You just get sucked into it. One of the other things I enjoy about it now with the flow coverage is, I remember specifically a couple of years ago, I was out snowmobiling here locally when we had local snow. And so I watched the beginning of the race on my phone, went for about hour ride, checked. We were at about lap 59. So kind of, made some mental notes of where everybody was. Then over lunch, I watched about 40 laps. And it just over the course of the day, because it takes so long, and you just see these stories develop over the course of the day. It's just fascinating.
Well, and if you're not familiar with the race, you're right. The strategy of the Soo I-500 is crazy because it is NASCAR. I mean, I hate to bring in the analogy, but friends, that's what it is. It's a live pit. It's got a pace sled. It is. It's 500 laps, and it has been called in the past to weather if snow dust gets too bad, and then the opposite takes place, which maybe won't be quite the case this year. But if the ice is thin, man, that last 100 miles, friends, it's 3-foot moguls in the dirt, and you're wearing out everything on a snowmobile. And it's just a different thought process. And my good friend Rob Mason up in Michigan, who worked for Arctic Cat for years, who was my crew chief when I was there, spent countless amounts of years. You know, he kind of taught me on how you run that race. You kind of run it backwards. So you'll hear drivers talk about, you know, we just want to stay on the lead lap the first 100, get fuel every time we can, and then all we want to do is be around for the last 150, because it is 100% strategy. Are you taking carbide? Are you wearing out your outside carbide? Are you running it too hard? Is your belt getting hot? And the rough stuff, don't tear up your track because you only get one. I mean, there's just, it goes on and on and on, and there's always drama. There is. And you said it. I know Bunkies last year had a challenge with however many laps to go. Their rider turned their sled over and we're down 3 laps and came back and won. And it's crazy. And you know what? This year won't be any different. There's always drama at the Soo. So, you know, again, if you haven't ever experienced it and you're a fan of snowmobiling with Flow Racing, the neat part is whatever drama happens today, there's a camera there, John, in 30 seconds, and you get to learn what happened, what failed. Oh, it was a belt. Oh, it was a bearing. Oh, it was a track. They lost a track. Oh no, they're done. You know, and it's crazy. It's a lot of fun, and it's just a spectacle, really like another. And they've got some grant money, so they've been able to do some work at the facility. And the nice part is, it seems to be an event that's going to stay. And, you know, there were some years, as you well know, that there were some challenges with that because it takes a lot and a ton of volunteers that do this. They got a volunteer network that work up there all the time making that special, and it brings a lot to the city, but it's a lot of fun. If you've never seen it, man, Flow Racing, John, you know, it's awesome. Go watch it.
Yep, absolutely. So we've been plugging the race, and the race is obviously the center part, but kind of in the spirit of talking about our first guest, when Dave was talking about the chaos, for lack of a better word, that's the Manawa Snodeo. Again, as someone who hasn't been to the Soo, I've only heard stories, but there's also sounds like a real carnival atmosphere that goes on all day there between the beer tent and everything else going on. Set the scene for our viewers. What's it like? What's a day at the Soo like for a consumer?
It is an all-day event. I mean, when I was announcing the race, literally I'd be on a microphone for 9 hours. I mean, it's just an all-day deal. But the neat part is, you know, a lot of these race teams bring their friends and family. So they got their group in the pits. It's working on the sled, which is upwards of 8 or 10 people. And then they've got their crew in the stands doing their thing. And it's just unlike anything you ever seen. There's lots of other tribute things they do as far as past you know, riders and racers. It's a lot of vintage stuff. And the thing that really makes it special, and they're going to have it this year, John, is that when the trails are open. And you can't believe the amount of snowmobiles that show up, because if you're in the area, hey, let's cruise into the Soo and watch it for a couple hours. And then what you notice is later, it's really big at the beginning. And then you see the crowd kind of back off during the middle of the day. And then I'm telling you, that last 100 laps, there's just people show up because the drama is just so high strung. And now with Flow Racing, the neat part is lots of the local restaurants are busy. They're all putting it on TVs, and, you know, you can watch this thing anywhere. So it's just it's really a spectacle, and it's like any other racing. There's nothing like being there in person and seeing it live yourself. It's really awesome.
So I'll pardon me for those of you who have heard this story before, because I think I've told this story in a previous Snow Goer Live, although not this year. But so the first enduro race I covered, they had one at Canterbury Park here in the Minneapolis area, the Canterbury 500. And I was used to covering oval sprint racing. And so I'm sitting there, and this is back in the film camera days. And so I've got my usual 30 rolls of film that I got about 36 clicks in them each. And I got my notebook. And so the sleds roar by me on lap 1, and I write down the order of the first few sleds, and then pull up the camera and click, 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 click. And then the next lap, I just speak out loud the top 5 so I can write them down after click, 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 and the third lap and the fourth lap. And we get like 25 laps into this thing, and I'm just about out of notebook. My film's almost gone. It's like, okay, I got to calm down here. And that's really what the racers have to do. I remember back then, Brian Sturgeon, you know, a Hall of Fame racer, he would go and race these enduro races like he was running an oval sprint. And of course, his stuff wouldn't last because he'd wear it out because he was running it like a sprint. And then you have somebody like John Wick, who's one of the announcers this year. And he'd get 7 laps down, but he was just calmly taking his time. And he always put a lot of suspension in his sled and ran that thing all by himself versus all the other teams. And it would all shake out and he'd be the first guy across the line. It's fascinating, just all those little sidebar stories that happen over the course of the day.
Well, and the track's the story, John. I mean, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the track's the story. You see the ice staying, you see it going away. Oh my gosh, dude, you can take out your carbides in 2 laps. And now you got 80 laps of sitting there watching. The other thing I was just going to mention, and you threw the picture up, the amount of work that these guys put into these sleds, it's phenomenal. They
Yeah.
literally start working on these things when this race is over. They'll start working next year because everything's about making that sled as durable as possible. And they, trust me, they do everything. And a lot of them now, as you see, they're even paying close attention to aero, right? I mean, there's just so many details in cooling, right? You're going to run a sled that hard for 8 hours. You can't lose your brakes. If you do, you're done. And there's just so many things, but it's a tribute and they're figuring it out. You know, back in the day, you know, in the Indy Wedge days, those things were the fastest things on the planet. And they figured out this year how to get some more speed out of there. Some records made this year. Zach DeWalt, you know, cut a lap at 95 mile an hour. That's unheard of fast. And on a big modern sled. And certainly it's dominated a lot by the folks at Polaris because they spend a lot of money making that thing run. But there's some Skidoos that are fast this year. There's some cats that are there. But it's just, you know, and a lot of these people do this for generations. I mean, they do it for so long, John. It's just fun. You know, it's kind of like, it's like cross country when Pat was putting that thing back together. You know what? You get enough people that have the interest, it's going to stay there. You get a little bummed out, you know, when you hear there's no cross country 500 this year, but you know what? That's the cross country 500. Some years you don't have it, you know, where the Soo is a little more controlled, right? It's a little more, you know what you're going to get. And I think that's what attracts people to it. And especially the viewers watching it.
And those enduro guys, they'll run on anything. You throw down some sawdust, they'll go. They're all a bunch of big tough guys anyway. The reason I put these guys up is you know, just talking about, so you got the you know, 500 laps, 500 miles, 8.5, 9 hours of racing. When these guys won it 2 years ago, this is the Tommy Bauer Racing number 19. You know, Joey Birch and who was it? Erdman were trading paint, clacking skis coming to the checkered flag. I mean, it was that close at the end where it was literally muscling each other out trying to get to that checkered flag. So again, it's all about the drama. Here's last year's winners, the Bunky Racing team that's kind of writing their name in history. It's a lot of good things, a lot of good stories, and it's just fascinating.
You know, the one thing they do really good there too, and I've said this for years, is they make safety the highest priority, because back in the day, if you go find some old pictures, it's halfway scary what was allowed to happen from where people were, driver safety, all that. That's really the first thing they work on. And they've done such a good job at keeping that thing safe. And they pay a lot of attention to that. And especially with the technology we all have now, there's a lot of things you can do to help the riders. Certainly the fans are back now. They never used to be, John. Do you remember the pictures of this race where they would line the track with people right next to the track? Like I mean, that scares me even thinking about it. But you know, it's just a great event. And I think that's part of snowmobiling, right? It's having that fun, you know, with your friends, with your family. And some of these events like this are a staple in the industry, and the Soo is definitely one of them.
So again, you're watching Snow Goer Live, our weekly video podcast program, and our guest is Chad Colby, who has pretty much done everything in the snowmobile industry over the years. So they ran some time trials yesterday. They did some qualifying for the front row, some familiar names at the top. You mentioned Polaris has long dominated this, and that 57 team. Well, and then they ran the 51 sled too, but the team led by Zach DeWald is really, really fast. But there's another DeWald who timed in just behind him, his own father, and they run an Arctic Cat. He's on the Cataract collision sled. So, you know, if you think it's just a Polaris thing, well, last night, second fastest sled out there was an Arctic Cat. So it's no gimme.
Yeah, that's right. And there was actually a Skidoo that was fast tonight in the Myers shootout as well. So,
really?
You know, at the end of the day, that's probably the neatest thing about this event is, you know, to first win any kind of cross country, you got to finish. I remember having those discussions with Pat Mock at the Black Cat. The first year I was up there for the I-500 cross country race, and he said to me, we were sitting back in the corner. He goes, "Hey, Chad, good luck tomorrow. We're racing the next day." And I said, "Yeah, okay." He goes, "Hey, the first three, I was in a ditch and I never finished for the first three." And I go, "Pat, that's terrible." And he's like, "I'm just saying, good luck tomorrow. You can do it." And I think I don't know if I ran 5 or 6, and other than I think I had a drivetrain failure in one sled. The rest of them I finished. And these races, there is nothing like coming to that last 10 miles, that last mile, just getting to the end. And then you take the top, say 10 or 15 guys at the Soo this year. These guys have done that for years. They're just trying to get the big trophy. And the big trophy, you can't have a failure. You can't, if you lose an exhaust, if you lose anything in the last 20 laps, you're handing it to somebody else, and you go practice and try again for next year. But there's some guys with some great speed this year with some great looking sleds. And speaking of that, man, it's worth it just to go see the artwork in these snowmobiles. And Flo does a good job. They were in a trailer today. I saw one. They were in DL Racing's trailer and talking to the crew with the camera in the trailer. And I'm like, this is awesome. You can watch this right from your phone. So it's a lot of fun, John. I appreciate you sharing it and talking about it. You and I are grinning like we're 13. I mean, it's just if you love snowmobiling, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, you sent me some pictures this week of some really cool looking stuff that the team has come up with. And is the Bunky team running the same package?
Yeah, very much. And it's funny you mentioned that. One of the things that you have to do with a keen eye is, man, you think of guys like Brian Dick and Gabe Bunky and those guys. If you don't think that they didn't have everything they could have on the track, they did. And they do still. So when you see sleds and you go, what am I actually looking at there? That looks different. Well, it might be. That's a nice way to say that. Their rule book allows that. I mean, in 2010, we took a rush there, a consumer rush, and we did magic to it. But we had different rails in it and all kinds of stuff, just hoping to get that thing to the end, which it made it. But, it's a lot of fun. And I think that's part of it. It's nice seeing the OEMs, even if it's really just one right now. Obviously Skidoo pays close attention to this too, and Arctic Cat really always has. And that is, you can learn a lot at races like this because it's very controlled. You can really punish snowmobiles. And I think there's a lot of R&D that happens at these places. You don't think it's just all snowcross, because it's here too as well.
Yeah. And I would almost say probably even more so than snowcross. Snowcross has gotten so specialized that some other aspects of the sport are actually better proving grounds nowadays. Not to take anything away from snowcross, great action, but
a great action.
Proving ground. Yeah.
Yeah. You're totally right.
Yeah. So any predictions for this weekend? Are you going to name a winner now, go on the record, or do you want to anchor?
The guys from Mickey's, Cataract, I mean, all the same guys, Bunky, there's just so many good guys right there that are so good at getting to the end. And obviously to get the win, you got to have a few things go your way, but you still got to get there. Right. But there's been some guys knocking on the doors too. DNL Racing, I mentioned them earlier. They're good. I'm looking at my list of guys, Tommy Bauer, they've won it before and they've raced here forever. They're always in the hunt. I mean, it's awesome for that reason. And trust me when I tell you, whatever fun story you were talking about from 2 years ago when those guys were neck and neck down the front stretch and Bunky coming back, there'll be a story for 25 too. There always is. So the best thing you got to do is you just pray for a good, safe day and some solid racing weather. And the track team knows how to handle snow dust. There's some things that they can do. But I haven't looked at the weather today, but so far I think it looks pretty decent for Saturday up there. They got a lot of ice this year, John. They put a lot of water on, so track looks really good too, which is a great thing.
So I have a few statistics in front of me. So this will be the 55th running of the race. Polaris has 133 of them. Skidoo 10. Yamaha 6 and Arctic Cat 4. And then can you name the other two brands? There's two brands that have won this race. Gonna have to go way back. I won't drag it out too long.
I don't think John Deere won this, did they? I don't know. I can't remember. Who else?
Mercury won one. And Chaparral also won one. So those are your winners over the years. The
It was a big deal when Cat won their first one. Cat knocked on
Yeah.
the door of this race so long, especially with the Fire
forever.
Cat, because it was fast. My buddy Rob had a team here that was, up whatever, 2 laps, 1 lap with a handful to go, and literally blew a hole in exhaust, which had never happened before. That cost them the win with Justin Winter back in the day. He talks about it to this day. It's like they had it all day and then lost with an exhaust, So, but yeah, it's the history in the race is just so fascinating.
Yeah. Was looking down now, it was 2010 when Troy DeWald was part of a winning team that finally broke through for Arctic Cat, because there were so many years where an Arctic Cat would be right up there with 5 laps left and then something would happen.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy you mentioned all that. I mean, there's just so many memories you get there. I remember in 11 when I think Davidson won it in 11. And I walked down the track, and unfortunately that was the day of that we lost Pat Mock. And here's all of us from the USCC. They've been racing together for 10 years. We're all at the Soo, and you want to talk about a memory. Whoa. Yeah. I mean, it's just everything about snowmobiling kind of does that though, John. You meet so many great people, and they're people you share and talk to with all your life. Maybe you only see them once a year at Haydays or at Eagle River or wherever, but that's just part of snowmobiling,
Yeah. So for those who like a little history, the Mercury win came with the Hayes boys, Stan Hayes, Doug Hayes, and Jerry Whitty. They won it in 1976. It says the Chaparral won it, but my pages that page didn't print out for me, so I can't sound like I know it all. I'm just reading off of pieces of paper. I
got a folder with all kinds of history stuff. I didn't even bring it. It's put away, and but it's fun. I mean, I think the biggest thing is if you like snowmobile racing and you haven't checked this out, I highly suggest what you said. Start at the first part of the race, maybe watch the first 20 or 30 laps, check in a little bit more. But you know what? At the end of the day, go hang out for that last half an hour, 45 minutes. It's awesome. And, go to social media. You can go to Soo's, that they've got an official page. I've got a fan page, or Snow Goer will be posting and reposting stuff. There's lots of great stuff to see there as well.
So let's shift gears dramatically, Mr. Industry Insider. Any predictions on what's going to happen with our good friends at Arctic Cat? Because you and I share a love of that brand and a hope that someone picks that thing up soon and keeps running it.
John, you and I talked about this the other day. I think really simply, I think they got a plan. I would trust. None of us know what that plan is. And, we can all speculate, but at the end of the day, I'm sure there's a plan. And it was encouraging here in the last week. It's public knowledge that some really good dealers picked up the Arctic Cat brand here in the last, week and made it public. And man, if that's not 25 green flags, man, that's awesome. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, especially with Yamaha's exit. That's another Oprah show, but it's sad to see them leave. That's the best way to say that. But you know what? Nobody wants Cat out of the business, and no, that's not good for anybody. But on the same thing, it's like you and I said, the snowmobile industry is changing. And does that mean it goes to a model that you preseason order them only and they don't overbuild? And I don't have a clue what all that is.
Yeah,
that's over our pay grade. But the reality is, hopefully there's a nice plan and we can get this behind us and keep moving forward, because there's a lot of great technology and it's evolving like crazy. It's a lot of fun to watch.
The very best example, and again, for those of you who've heard this story before, that I was given was by the proud owner of Thomas Snow Sports, who said to me that it feels like we're in the early 80s when Arctic Cat went out, and when we had other brands disappear and Polaris almost went out. And he said at that point you would have never guessed the boom of the 90s was coming, but it came. So there's no saying that right now we're bouncing off some rocks a little bit, but there's no saying that we can't have another 90s that's right around the corner that we're not seeing quite yet. So
that's right.
What gets me is just, well, my best example was last Saturday. Me and a former coworker jumped in the truck early, drove on some really icy roads. We had that truck and trailer skating quite a few times on our way to Virginia, Minnesota. Took us, I think 250 miles getting up there. We unloaded and stopped the first time at the 7 mile mark just to make sure, I was leading. So I just want to make sure he was all zipped up and buttoned up and where he is. And he comes, pulls up beside me and shuts off his machine and said, it's already worth it. Just that first 7 miles was already worth it of a long drive because there's just no sport like it. And so that's the thing that we all have going for us is that unrivaled passion that people have for snowmobile.
Yeah, that's totally right. Oh, and by the way, a little update from the Sioux. Skidoo won the Myers shootout tonight.
Really?
The number 2 Town Brothers Skidoo won tonight. Can you believe that? I mean,
Okay.
so again, getting right to your point, I think that's the key, right? Is
Yeah.
if there's some places you can go ride, you got to travel a little bit. That's just always been the part of it. But that's the special part. I know last year when I took my wife and we went to Northern Illinois and rode on a 2-up 4-stroke Polaris for the first time, and we had a blast. Like it was awesome. I'm sure I took her on too many miles. Okay, but you know what? I probably won't do that again. Okay, but on the same token, I was telling her we were in North Dakota here not long ago, and I said, you know what? I need to take you up. She's never been in Eagle River riding sleds before on that trail system. I'm like, honey, that's a whole different deal than riding Illinois. And she was asking questions about it. I'm like, yeah, we need to go here for a steak, and we need to go here and have a pizza. And it's just all the things you do on snowmobiles, and that's what makes it a lot of fun.
So within our comment sections, Mr. Phil Molto up in Ontario has asked, when was the last Leaf Spring winner at the Sioux? Boy, any guess?
Well, you got to go back to snowmobiles that are, John, if you got the list of winners there, I guess I can probably grab it here on my computer. Yeah. You got to go back to before we had IFS suspension, right?
Yeah.
So, when I say IFS, I mean, trust me,
IFS in race trip is before rough trail riders.
Yeah, 100%. So you're talking, if I'm throwing a dart, what are we thinking there? It's got to be 80s, right? No, I mean, let's see.
70s probably.
Yeah, 70s. Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
the Grant Hawkins went on a Yamaha in 1980.
Yeah. I would lob right in there in the early 80s. Yeah, 100%.
Because by 82, when Karpik and Musselman won it, I think that was IFS.
Yeah,
design.
100%. I think so. Yeah.
And the year before that was Useldinger on a Polaris. I'm sure that was Leaf Spring, or not a Leaf Spring.
You know what's crazy? Sled. What's crazy is the trailing arm sleds were always so good there. Yeah. And you know what? When you had the 3 cylinders humming, whoa, man! I mean, there was nothing like hearing those things fly by. And obviously, if you look close at those pictures of the trailing arms, oh yeah, they're all beefed up. Don't kid yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, those things handled so flat that you could just rip around the track. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. That's 100% right. And you look at them now; they got offset seats, and they're changing steering post geometry. They're doing everything to get them to turn. Right? You can make them go straight, but you got to turn. Yeah. And on the brakes and in the bumps and all that fun stuff. But
everything evolves.
That's right. But John, this is cool. I mean, I enjoyed talking snowmobiling. You and I always seem to catch up every year or two, and done some fun stuff with the charity ride that's coming up, the big 500-mile charity ride. It looks like they're going to have some weather in the UP for that, which is always great. And we've always had a lot of fun talking about sleds, and tonight's a lot of fun. So I appreciate that.
Very good. Well, I suppose we claim we keep this show under an hour, and we're almost at that hour mark. So I suppose I should spin you loose, but it's always great fun talking to you, Chad. We'll probably trade a couple texts tomorrow as the race evolves, and we'll see how it goes. But wish you the very best of winter when all that snow falls that me and Sarna were talking about. Get out and rip around a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Saturday's the Sioux Day, so John, make sure on Snow Goer magazine, share all that stuff, and go to Flow Racing. If you guys haven't seen that, it's such a great place to watch sled racing. It really, truly is. And they keep getting it better and better all the time. So, John, have a great night. Have a great, safe winter to everybody riding sleds. God bless you all, and be safe.
Perfect. Thanks, Chad.
You bet.
And we throw him away. So, you're just stuck with me. So I'll do a quick wrap up here. Again, you're watching Snow Goer Live. We're brought to you by Arctiva, by Z1R, and by Gates Belts. So I'll pull those up here. So we're normally at this time of show, kind of tell you maybe some industry rumors and stuff like that, although we're already kind of covered some of the big stuff with Arctic Cat, which the rumor is that there aren't any more truth or lack of truth to any of the rumors. Everything's still rumors. So no wise answers for you on that one quite yet, but we'll just keep our fingers crossed because they have a lot of great people up there and they have a really great brand. So we'll hope that keeps going. Normally, this is also where I tell you about what we're riding and what we're doing. Well, as I said last week, I went up to Virginia, Minnesota, and had an absolutely fabulous ride. 155 miles of just great trails. It was shockingly good. It was such a pleasant trail ride. We enjoyed the heck out of it, and I'm planning on heading back up there either tomorrow or Saturday, depending on if when I can get my co-rider to come with me. We had our Polaris VR1 up with us last weekend, the 850. We also had the Lynx GLS with us, Rave GLS with us last weekend. The next sled you're going to see me on, we've got a 9R Indy XCR that I just strapped a set of CNA Pro skis on yesterday to get that all ready to roll. So we're going to try that with different skis on it, see how that changes the handling a little bit. We're throwing other aftermarket parts on other sleds, on trailers, on our truck, all over the place, so we can get our cold testing done for the magazine. So yeah, it should be fun. As much as anything, I'd like to encourage all you guys to get out and ride. As we said, there's no sport like this, so get out and truly enjoy it. I saw Russ Miller talked about or had a question on here, a comment on here that he was up riding by Roseau and Warroad and Baudette, Minnesota last weekend, and it was good, and the groomers were out. I had friends in the UP; they had absolutely a great time. I have another friend, contributor to our magazine, Jeff Oberg, who's down in Colorado right now riding. Got a bunch of people out in upstate New York that I've got to meet over the years through the Big East Power Sports Show. They're out riding and having fun, so it's great to see. Again, if the snow isn't right outside your back door, hook up a trailer and get to it, because this is what we live for, I guess. So again, we're normally Thursday nights 7:30 here on Facebook and on YouTube, and then have it taped afterwards. Problem next week is I'll be traveling. I'm actually going to be gone testing sleds, testing some 2026 snowmobiles, in fact. Don't know what they are yet, but I'll be testing them somewhere. So Thursday, I will not be available to do this show. We might do a quick catch up Friday afternoon for those of you who are interested, but otherwise it'll be the following week. We'll pick this back up before we head out for another adventure. So thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll wrap it up. I'm your host, John Prusak. This again, Snow Goer Live, brought to you by Artiva Z1R and Gates. You guys have a great weekend coming up. And close.